You ever have one of those moments where you realize the world ain't as simple and decent as you thought it was? Well, the day I found a damn pavilion on land that legally belonged to me, land my uncle trusted me with before he passed, that was the day I stopped believing people always did the right thing if you just played nice. And trust me, I tried. I really did. I remember the morning it all started, and I swear to you, it felt like the first chapter of what should have been a quiet Texas dream. I just inherited 14 acres outside of Dry Creek Bend, a patch of Texas cedar and dust just far enough from Austin that you couldn't hear the traffic, only the wind pushing through the grass like it had someplace to be. My uncle, Don Reeves, God rest that stubborn man's soul, worked that land until the day his heart gave out in his workshop, a half-built windmill, and a radio full of 80s country playing beside him. He didn't leave me money or a condo or even a truck. He left me dirt, sky, and a chance to start over. And I swore I wouldn't waste it. I sat in my pickup that first morning, a coffee that tasted like burnt toast in my hand, the deed still folded on the passenger seat. I kept touching it like it might vanish, like I'd wake up in my apartment again, staring at bills instead of open pasture. I was thinking I'd put in a barn, maybe a few goats, a workshop behind a tree line. Nothing crazy. Just a place where a man could breathe again without somebody telling him how. Then I saw it. I stopped the truck so fast my coffee hit the dashboard. Right there, sitting like it belonged, was a damn community pavilion, brick columns, a metal roof, picnic tables, planters, hell, even a grill built into the concrete. And the sign. That sign is burned into my memory the way lightning burns a tree trunk. Oak Haven Lakes, HOA Pavilion. Members only. Members only. On my land. At first, I honestly thought maybe I was looking at the wrong spot. I pulled up the county GIS map on my phone, something I picked up years back when I worked construction, and zoomed until my eyes hurt. And there it was, plain as barbecue sauce on a white shirt. That pavilion wasn't kind of sort of maybe on the property line. It was good, and 10 feet inside my boundary, like a boot print on someone else's porch. My first mistake? I gave him the benefit of the doubt. I found the HOA number online and called it, thinking maybe it was a misunderstanding, maybe somebody screwed up a drawing years ago and forgot. Second ring. This voice answers, bright, chirpy, coated in that artificial sweetener tone you only hear from people who think your concerns are a hobby and their rules are gospel. This is Cheryl with Oak Haven Lakes. How can I help you today? I told her the situation real calm, real polite, the way Mama raised me. But Cheryl didn't miss a beat before saying, like it was already settled by the Lord himself. Oh, that pavilion? Yes, we've used that space for years. Your uncle gave us verbal permission. Verbal permission for a permanent structure on private land. I said, ma'am, you got anything in writing? And her voice snapped like a twig under a boot. Well, no, but he sent us a thank you card once. I can forward a scan if you need it. Should be enough to establish implied consent. Implied consent. I swear, almost swallowed my own tongue. 2 minutes later, she emails me a picture of this old postcard. A beach scene. Stock photo palm trees. And on the back, in barely readable cursive, thanks for keeping the pavilion tidy. Much appreciated. No signature. No date. No mention of land, ownership, permission, anything. That's when I knew I wasn't dealing with neighbors. I was dealing with people who believed something real dangerous, that if they used a thing long enough, it became theirs. I called a lawyer in town, old school property guy named Harlan Decker. Wore the same tan blazer, so many years it looked sun-faded. But he knew land law like preachers know scripture. I showed him everything, and he didn't laugh, didn't blink, just leaned back and said, they built that without a permit, without a lease, and without a damn scrap of recorded easement. They got 10 business days to move it, or we move it for them. So we sent the letter. Firm, legal, official, and all that. I figured they'd roll up with a crew, disassemble the pavilion, mutter something about mix-up, maybe even bring cookies. HOA's always got someone who bakes, right? Instead, on day 3, I get a voicemail from County Environmental Compliance accusing me of having an open well on my property that could endanger wildlife. I hadn't even dug a shovel into that dirt yet. I drove out there and sure enough, there's a well, capped, locked, safe enough to store dynamite. But someone, somewhere, wanted a record that said otherwise. Day 4. A fire hazard citation because apparently I'd dumped garbage near the cedar line. I go out with gloves and a flashlight, and there it is, 3 trash bags torn open, fast food cartons, beer cans, even a diaper. None of it mine. Day 5. A warning for illegal deforestation. The only thing I'd cut was poison ivy before it introduced itself to my neck. I ain't a genius, but I know a setup when I see one. They couldn't win legally, so they were going to swamp me in fines and complaints until I either sold the land or surrendered the fight. Thing is, I've lost enough in my life. I wasn't losing this. I hired an environmental firm from 2 counties over, folks with zero ties to Oak Haven Lakes. They wrote up a 60-page report proving every complaint was faker than church wine at a Baptist picnic. And I sent that report straight to the town newspaper. 3 days later, a headline hit like a rifle shot cutting through quiet woods. HOA weaponizes county procedures against new landowner. And that's when things took a turn for the stranger. I got home one evening and found a brown envelope duct taped to my gate. No name, no return address. Inside was a USB stick and a single note. Watch this. Don't trust the maps. I plugged it into an old laptop I kept offline, just in case. There were 2 files. First one was a screen recording of the county GIS system. It showed my land before, clean, straight border. Then it showed it now, a smooth inward curve around the pavilion like someone drew it with a butter knife. Second file, a photo of a printed email. Subject line, boundary adjustment, quiet revision. Body, proceed as discussed. Keep documentation internal. My skin went cold. It wasn't just trespassing anymore. It wasn't even arrogance. This was something else. Something calculated. Somebody had reached inside a government mapping system and bent a property line like it was wire. I didn't say a word to anyone at first. I just sat there, staring at that laptop screen while the sun went down, turning everything the color of a rusted penny. I thought of my Uncle Don, all those years of working this land, sharpening fence wire, fixing the roof when the storms ripped shingles off. He trusted me to protect what he built, and someone was trying to carve it up behind a desk. I won't lie to you. I felt something that I hadn't felt in years. Not anger, not fear, resolve. A part of me that had been half asleep woke up. I knew one thing. If they wanted a war for this land, they damn sure had one. And that was before the night I showed up at their HOA meeting and tore their whole story right down the middle. But I'll get to that, because that night didn't just change the fight. It changed the battlefield. I heard they were planning a community meeting to talk about preserving the pavilion. They even printed flyers with a picture of that thing like it was some national monument. So I did what any reasonable, slightly ticked-off landowner would do. I showed up early, sat in the front row, and waited for the circus to begin. The HOA president, Cheryl Bowman, walked in like she was campaigning for Congress, beige suit, pearls, hair sprayed stiff enough to stop a low-caliber bullet. She started talking about traditions, shared spaces, children's birthday parties, and the importance of protecting what belongs to all of us. Then she clicked to a slide showing the altered GIS map, the one with the curved boundary. As you can see, she said, chin lifted like a crane boom, this pavilion is clearly within our communal buffer zone. We have no legal dispute here. That's when I stood up, real slow, and set a foam board on the table. On it was the original survey, ink faded but still sharp enough to cut through lies. I held up the HOA's new printed map beside it, and you could hear the air change, like the room itself took a breath. No legal dispute? I said, ma'am, no legal lines were crossed because y'all moved the damn lines. People murmured. Someone gasped. Cheryl blinked like a deer overthinking headlights. I didn't stay much longer. I didn't need to. Doubt was a seed, and I just planted a field of it. After that, I stopped asking nicely. I went back to the property, sat on my tailgate, and read Texas property code until my eyes hurt. And I found the line I needed like a nail in a tire. A landowner has the right to remove an unauthorized fixed structure built without permit on private land. No easement, no lease, no written consent. That pavilion was not a community treasure. It was trespassing wood and nails. So I called a man named Calvin Ward, a demolition guy I went to high school with. Last I saw him, he flipped a portable restroom upside down with a skid steer for charity. Good man, terrible judgment, perfect for the job. I asked him one question. Can you make it poetic? He just laughed and said, sunrise or sunset? We chose sunrise. Texas light hits different then. Softer but honest. You can bury a lot in the dark, but the morning shows everything. 2 days later, Calvin rolled up with a bulldozer, a flatbed, and a Bluetooth speaker playing Johnny Cash like a sermon. I poured a cup of coffee, so hot it felt like anger in a mug, sat in a lawn chair, and nodded at him. Send it. He dropped that blade and hit the corner column so clean and hard it sounded like thunder splitting the ground. Brick buckled. The metal roof groaned. The benches went flying like toothpicks at a bar fight. By minute 15, that pavilion was nothing but a pile of expensive firewood and shattered pride. Then came the caravan. Tesla's Autis, a minivan full of outrage. And Cheryl, stomping across my clearing like she was storming Normandy. Stop this immediately, she yelled. You are destroying community property. I stood there, coffee in one hand, deed in the other, and said, Cheryl, you are trespassing on my land. And this is not community property. This is uninvited construction. She started screaming about police, jail time, lawsuits, emotional trauma to the neighborhood, and I swear I almost asked if she wanted a marshmallow to roast over the rubble. Deputies showed up 10 minutes later. I handed them a folder so thick it could have stopped a truck. Survey maps, timestamps, GIS overlays, the anonymous email, even the environmental report. One deputy flipped pages, nodded slow, and said, Ma'am, I don't see a crime here, at least not one committed by him. I could have framed that moment. But Cheryl wasn't done. I knew that before the dust settled. 2 weeks later, I got served. A lawsuit so dramatic it should have come with popcorn. Claims of destruction of communal assets, harassment, endangerment of residents' emotional peace. My favorite part was a resident statement that her child cried every time they drove past my gate like I'd bulldozed a puppy shelter instead of a picnic hangout built by entitled adults. But my attorney, Old Harlan, just smiled like he'd been waiting his whole life to skin an HOA. We countered with everything in the book: trespass, construction without permit, falsifying county mapping data, harassment, malicious misuse of government channels. And we subpoenaed the GIS tech. That poor man, Evan Matthews, looked like someone asked him to confess to murder and bad accounting at the same time. But when the judge swore him in, something cracked open inside him. Maybe he was tired of being someone's secret weapon. He told the court about the quiet boundary revision, about Cheryl calling in a favor from a zoning contact, about being paid under a consulting fund that technically existed to beautify the community. Beautify? I swear, you can't make this stuff up. When the judge ruled, he didn't drag it out. The pavilion was an unpermitted, unauthorized structure on private land. The HOA was ordered to pay $92,000 in damages plus legal fees, and the district attorney was authorized to open an investigation into public record manipulation. I walked out of that courthouse light on my feet, like someone unshackled my ribs so I could breathe again. But it didn't last. See, when I got back to the land, there was another envelope on my gate. No duct tape this time, just wedged in the wire like a thorn. Inside was a single sheet of paper and a grainy photo of Cheryl talking to two men outside a county vehicle. The note said, "The pavilion wasn't the first. It won't be the last. No signature. No hints. Just that. I burned the paper, but not the thought." Some people think land is money or control or bragging rights at an HOA barbecue. But my uncle used to say land is memory. If someone steals your land, they ain't just taking dirt. They're taking the years buried in it. So I protect it now. Every fence post, every boundary line, every acre. And if they come again, well, I'm done asking nicely. Now it's your turn. Tell me in the comments, when someone crosses a line that belongs to you, do you let it slide for the sake of peace? Or do you stand up and take it back, even if it means a war?